Hello and welcome to Planet Holyrood, the podcast all about Scottish politics. I'm Chris McCall. I'm the Deputy Political Editor at the Daily Record, and I'm hosting this week's episode while Paul Hutchin is off on another fact-finding trip to London. Another one, becoming quite regular.
All those facts in the pub,
Joining me this week are two Planet Holyrood regulars who need no introduction. On my left, Mark Smith of the Daily Record and Douglas Dickey of the Scottish Daily Express. Now let's dive straight into this week's episode and talk about the Alex Salmond files. What are they? Where did they come from? And how many have you read? Now, before I turn to you, Mark, I should just remind listeners that the Scottish Government yesterday uploaded 5,000 documents to its website, all relating to a 2021 inquiry led by a lawyer, James Hamilton, into whether the then First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, had broken the ministerial code over handling of government complaints against Alex Salmond. Now, spoiler alert, the lawyer ruled Sturgeon did not break the code, but the Scottish Government has spent years dancing around the subject of why the files should not be released to the public, despite multiple Freedom of Information requests. So, Mark, after that preamble, it's 2026. Does anyone really care about this stuff anymore?
I think they do. I think Sturgeon and the late Alex Salmond are both still by a long way, the towering figures in post-devolution Scottish politics. And I think people are still very interested in them both. I know that when we go online and we tag something with Sturgeon or Salmond, it does well. There is still a massive interest in that. And it's just the soap opera dynamic there of the mentor and the apprentice and their love for each other absolutely destroyed by all sorts of alleged wrongdoing on both sides. It's pure theatre, and I think there is an interest in it. The one thing that amazes me about this whole Salmond Files malarkey is why they bothered to spend so much taxpayers' money on these interminable legal channels, these trying to keep it all secret. Because, as you know, because I could see steam coming off your keyboard just in the newsroom, when it dropped at about 2:00, there was, it was tables up. Everyone, we had to try and split up who was reading what, and we were all desperately trawling through it, looking for lines, a lot of redacted stuff. Really difficult to plough through it and find a line. We did find some really good lines. I think we splashed one today about the whole affair. But why were they so keen to keep it secret? And there's nothing in there, I think, that is terminal for the SNP government. I think the one thing that they were trying to do is make sure that nothing could point to any potential victims.
Yeah, in the criminal case.
Yes, and I think that is correct. I think it's absolutely right that I know as a news editor I should want everything out there. I think the alleged victims in any case involving alleged sexual offences, whether there's guilt or not proved, need to be kept under wraps forever. And that's just an absolute 100% hard, fast principle. So they were right to redact anything that could have revealed the identities of any of Salmond's victims. That's just a safety, it's just a decency thing.
But they could have done that years ago.
Yeah. They could have. And I still don't understand, and we've not really got a proper answer as to why they kept it under wraps for so long. I think it's about a culture of secrecy within not just the SNP, but within the entire lanyard class of Scotland, that somehow we're there to be kept in the dark and fed shite like mushrooms, and they can just go about the business of governing us. That is the problem for me, and that's what I think the Salmond Files has exposed.
Dougie, how many of these files have you read?
Oh, I mean, I went through it all on the train on the way in.
That must be where we get the train for Bangkok,
Moscow. But no, look, I've got to say I do agree with Smitty for the most part.
Can't have that.
I don't see that. I know that's the thing, that's the thing. But I don't see much in it that's really groundbreaking. And I think the question is over why. And it's not just with this. The SNP aren't just secretive with this. They're secretive with loads of things. We've so many FOI battles with them.
They're no strangers to the court session.
And it's not just. I think it was Jackie Bailey said that John Swinney was the architect of this secretive Scotland. But Swinney, Sturgeon and Salmond were just as keen to keep things under wraps. And ultimately, it's public money. But this whole this whole psychodrama has kind of dominated Scottish politics for the last 5 years. It was interesting that they put it out yesterday. Chris, you and I were discussing off air.
Yeah,
Obviously, it was a good day to bury bad news with some more revelations about Dorothy Bain and some rather grim crime
I call it
stats.
Bad News Tuesdays,
Yeah.
and that's just a personal thing. I'm not trying to make it a thing on the internet now. But so just
Hashtag.
just to
Bad News
recap,
Tuesday.
yeah. So yesterday at 9:30 a.m. we had the scheduled release of the annual crime stats. We won't get into the detail of that, but they were pretty grim, fair to say. Across the board, pretty nasty crimes that were up between about 5 and 10%. So we had that at 9:30. We're digesting that. Then we had at noon the news of the Loch Lomond development. That was finally rejected. That's 10 years that's been going on. I think the developer still could go to judicial review, so potentially could go. But anyway, it's been KB'd. And not long ago, we had Ivan McKee stand up in Parliament saying, well, the Scottish Government reporters recommended it should go ahead, and who are we to disagree with the government reporter? Well, it turns out when you're this close to an election, maybe I'm being cynical. So that was at noon. They made the letter from Dorothy Bain at 1:30, giving examples of when she previously updated the First Minister on how was it she called it, substantial prosecution decisions.
Yeah.
And that included the revelation that she'd actually told Swinney about the Peter Murrell charge a year ago.
Yeah.
We were all thinking it was last month.
And this is going to sound daft, right? And no, for the first time when it comes to me, I'm not that exercised about the Lord Advocate telling the government of the day how a big case is going.
I think when the big case involves the party of government, I think
I
that's
get that, but it's a case of some import, and it does involve people who previously either ran the governing party or were the husband of the person who ran the country. It seems to me that it's important that the government knows what's going on there, and I'm not that worried that I do worry that the Lord Advocate's role is a foolish one, to be in a political cabinet and also to be the head of the prosecution service. They need to be separated out, and if the Scottish legal system was run by a bunch of half-wits, then that would certainly be the case, right? But as it stands, she is in that role. I think it's okay for her to update the government on big cases. Just what annoys me more is the fact that they've basically changed their mind about whether indictments are actually public documents. For years as a news editor, I've been trying to get my hands on indictments. To be told by my chums at the Crown Office and the court service, oh no, they're private. There was a private court hearing. These are private. You'll get them when they run in court. Now, suddenly, overnight, the rules have changed, and apparently these. So I'll be asking, by the way, and I'm just warning everyone at the Crown Office and every court in Scotland, I'll be asking for every single indictment that I fancy, and I expect to be emailed it and be able to report on it, because that's now the rule.
They have basically changed the
It was never the rule, and it isn't the rule now.
I mean, I think we're getting a bit sidetracked, but
Well,
if there was steam coming off Chris's laptop yesterday, there's been steam coming out my ears about this for the last 2 weeks.
Just
I
to
won't
jump back.
bore viewers with it.
Sorry, I just
we had that.
Angry about this would be an understatement.
We had the Dorothy Bain debacle, as I've now called it, and I believe there'll be an urgent question on this subject at Parliament again today. That'll be after we have recorded this, so we don't know who's asking that and when it'll be answered.
I hope they're listening.
Hope they're listening. But yeah, just to jump back, so Tuesday, a lot of very big Scottish Government announcements, one of which, of course, just to circle back, was 5,000 files related to the James Hamilton investigation. And we should add, that's not a lot of them. There's still some outstanding issues between the Scottish Government and the Scottish Information Commissioner, because I had actually said yesterday that the Scottish Information Commissioner had scored a victory, and someone senior in the Scottish Government was very quick to tell me that no, he had not, and this was an ongoing, there were still outstanding issues in the court to be resolved. So the short thing is we could get even more of these files, which will keep you reading, I'm sure.
I mean, I think one of the fascinating things about this is we're about to get a whole new cohort at SNP MSPs who must be fed up of Sturgeon and Salmond still dominating, the whole narrative around this party. I mean, Sturgeon's saying that she wants to get back into the cut and thrust of frontline politics. I mean, she's effectively resigned from Holyrood the second she stepped down, and yet still, like Smitty, I know it. Nicola Sturgeon in a headline gets people talking. John Swinney in a headline doesn't. And Nicola Sturgeon, to a lot of people, is still the de facto leader of the SNP, even though she's spoken Holyrood a handful of times. We were joking. Our most popular phrase in Holyrood now is, "Oh, my machine's not working to vote." You know, that's what she says most. Now that's her. That's what she's putting towards the public debate now. That's her contribution, and some MSPs must be sick of it, but it keeps coming, and it keeps coming because the SNP have had this battle to keep it under wraps. This could all have been out 2 years ago, you know, in which case it wouldn't be just before an election. It wouldn't be dredging all this up again. Although John Swinney's probably quite happy for it to be all dredged
That's
up
the
again.
weird
It
thing,
takes
innit?
the focus off.
That's the weird thing. I think people, I've said this before, I think people like John Swinney. I think they trust him. And by the way, I think he's more cunning and a far more sort of, tough political operator than maybe people give him credit for. But I think he is a trustworthy guy. I think people sense in him a basic decency. And I think for some reason, all this Salmond Sturgeon dynamic, all of the sleaze and secrecy, it's not affecting John Swinney's SNP, really.
And yet,
You know,
common denominator between the two of them, Swinney.
Well,
He's
been
you
there for the whole time.
His fingerprints are all over, but both their governments.
But he's been clever enough or lucky enough
okay.
to, well, it could be a combination of both, to really not be blamed for any of this crazy stuff that's gone on in Scottish politics over the last 5 years. So, you know, and by the way, the SNP are flying ahead in the polls. So.
Well, yeah, that's a good opportunity to move on because we won't dwell on the poll too much, but safe to say it's another positive one for the SNP and their supporters, suggesting that maybe they could just about get a majority if they win the vast majority of their constituencies. But that's, of course, great timing for Scottish Labour, who are off to sunny Paisley on Friday for their spring conference. I'm looking forward to going to that myself. Always enjoy a trip to Paisley. But it's
Great tune. No, it is. I used to work for the Paisley Daily Express. It's a great place to.
It's fair to say that, well, I mean, Anas Sarwar is relentlessly upbeat. He's a confident guy. Obviously, as you will have discussed in this podcast before, he has distanced himself from Keir Starmer, who will be conspicuous in his absence from the Scottish Labour Conference. It wasn't so long ago that Scottish Labour Conference's Starmer would be the star turn, and he would be on the front cover of all the paraphernalia being handed out at the conference, but there'll be no sign of the PM on Friday. And obviously we're recording this podcast before the by-election in Greater Manchester on Thursday, which charitably you could say is too close to call. Bookies are kind of saying maybe Green, maybe favourite. Is that fair?
Well, I think they are probably the favourites. I've heard a few people suggest that they're hoping, or Labour people are hoping for maybe a Hamilton Lock call Stonehouse.
Yeah,
type
I
scenario
saw
where all
Whitcock
the
today
focus
saying they were
is
tied.
elsewhere.
We don't know the result of that while we're recording this, but come Friday, it could be another pretty bleak event for Labour members who, in the 2024 general election excluded, haven't had a lot to celebrate over the years, Mark.
No, you would think after coming into government, Starmer's win, by the way, we forget his victory in that last general election was seismic. But I think
It was seismic in terms of seats.
Yeah, but it was a good win. But I mean, I know what you mean. It's not insurmountable. It's not groundbreaking in that sense. But he still managed to get rid of the Tories, and that was an important thing. It's just gone really badly wrong ever since, and it's hard to get a grip on what Scottish Labour can do about it, because people will blame Labour when they see Labour on that ballot paper. They will not tick that box because of things that Starmer has done. Winter fuel payment, the Mandelson scandal was eminently avoidable.
Yep.
A bairn with a biscuit earth could tell you that the boy was a wrong and didn't appoint him to anything anywhere near power. Starmer did that anyway. He surrounded himself with kind of slightly wonky, Blairite sort of freaky people, and that seems to be the people who've been leading this Labour government. The whole thing's been a mess, a disaster, and yet Starmer has done some great things. The Labour government have done some great things on workers' rights, and they're finally today getting bills down, which they promised they would do. They are doing
Not by as much as he said they would.
no, but they're getting there.
And then they might go up again.
It's by 2030 that was at the pledge.
That's right. So anyway, long story short, I think that poor old Anas has got a tough gig now to convince voters to give him their vote. And the great worry for me, talking about Gorton, is that the left and the right in British politics are now going to be represented by the mad sort of weirdos of reform and the Greens who didn't care what a woman is, and a leader who thinks he can hypnotise women into growing their breasts, right? That's real, by the way. That's not me just making that up. So are they really going to be the right and left of British and Scottish politics? Are they going to be the right and the left of politics in this next Scottish election? It's terrifying to me, that prospect.
Look, the question we ask in this podcast a million times, though, is there anything that Anas Sarwar can do to change this narrative that you've summed up? I know on Friday, I mean, he's presumably going to have to announce some sort of policy.
Yeah.
You know, Scottish Labour have been quite shy of doing that the last year, you could say. But what can he do?
They need one single strong message on improving public services, and they have to stick to that. And everybody that goes out for Labour for the next few months has to repeat it. Do what Alistair Campbell told people. Forget what the question is. Give them the answer you want to give. They need to focus on that. One single thing that they hope everyone can get behind, whether it's doubling money for hospitals or, you know, schools or whatever it is, right? Get rid of the council tax. One big thing. And also they have to negatively campaign about the SNP's public service delivery, which has been atrocious.
Do you agree with that?
I think that, you know, I'm going to come back to the poll. It was an MRP, but there was, you know, there's been other polls last week that I've done a bit of delve into. There was a more uncommon one, which put the SNP within touching distance. And then you've got a Stonehaven one. Now, the thing is, Stonehaven were so close to the general election.
They got
result.
within 26 to the 2024 result. Yeah.
38 it was, but what I noticed was they were well out in Scotland. A lot of them were in Scotland. They had the SNP win 24 seats.
There are a few constituencies that don't look good to me.
Yeah, I mean, Edinburgh Southern's not going to. I think Edinburgh Southern's going to be Labour. Obviously, it's saying that Labour are going to win one constituency seat. I don't really buy that. But ultimately, you know, there's no point in pretending that the SNP aren't close to a majority, despite the arithmetic. They're on course to lose 400,000 votes and yet potentially increase the number of MSPs. But there's so many, according to more in common, there's so many constituencies on a knife edge. We're talking about 5%, 16. They gave me the 16, and 13 of them are predicted to go to the SNP. Of course, if the other 3 went the other way, then it could be a majority. But there's 13 there right away that are up for debate. 30 odd are going to be won with less than 35% of the vote. The good thing from Labour's point of view, and from, you know, the Tories' point of view as well, and Lib Dem's point of view, is it's not going to take a monumental shift in voter attitude to potentially create a monumental shift in the actual election result. And I feel like we've been banging this drum for the last year. Once focus comes round to the SNP's time in government, I think you will see that start to chip away a bit. I mean, SNP are going to win this. Anas Sarwar is not going to be First Minister. I think anyone who had hopes of that needs to, you know, get real. But I think there's many of us hope we can avoid an SNP majority, just because it's going to be another 5 years dominated by the Constitution, public services take a back seat. So there is, within, you know, the horror of that poll, if you like, for certain people, it's still up for grabs. It's really up for grabs. I think there's a lot of people as well who might not vote, a lot of people who don't know how they're going to vote. I think it's really, and if Labour can give something eye-catching, and it's the same way, you know, the other parties as well. I think the Tories have done quite well in recent weeks, but it doesn't really seem to be right now. It's not, it's not transferring to polls, and it's the same with Labour. And if anything, it's going the other way. Labour have got the double problem with the fact that Sir Keir Starmer's so terrible. So it wouldn't take much. A big policy announcement might be enough to just shift quite a few constituencies, maybe put Labour back into second place. Because I mean, from your guys' point of view, the record's obviously, been a Labour backing paper. I think that's what Labour are playing for now. They're playing for second place, and that's what's up for grabs. It's not
bite your hand off for second place right now. I mean, I know obviously we have caveats with the poll out today, but did put Labour at 15 MSPs.
Yeah.
I mean, and you that getting to all sort of preambulations there, but that would be a disaster.
And also, the Greens losing an MSP, so Smith will be quite happy with so, they said they were going to finish third last week.
We should mention at the end, just away from Labour, away from the SNP, As we're recording this, there's a debate in the Scottish Parliament today. It's not on any legislation, as we were talking about earlier, Dougie. It's just about sending a message, as politicians like to do. And it's on the Scottish Greens saying that away fans at Scottish football games, that's league games, not internationals, shouldn't be spending more than £25 for a ticket. So this is a basic question to finish. Mark, you're obviously following Hearts home and away a lot of the time. Does the football and politics mix, or is this a sensible policy? The Greens,
It's a great policy. It's a great policy. Anything that gives me more money to spend on bevy at the games is obviously to be welcome.
As
Is
someone,
it going to happen though? Any chance of it, you think?
I didn't think. I hope Hearts win the league, obviously. I pray they win the league. And I've got my picture of George Robertson up on my wall.
I don't want to have to get
You know,
between you.
Yeah,
Oh,
on
between
the-
me as
I'd like to say I meant the the acceptance and resignation stage of Hearts title
I'm getting
challenge.
there, by the way, I'm getting there.
Oh, I love it.
But I don't want to digress too
Yeah,
much on
sorry,
the
yeah.
Hearts title challenge. But I mean, you're making the point though, Dougie, that when it comes to Scottish football, the clubs make their money
Yeah,
through ticket
yeah.
sales, so
That-
they're
that's-
never going to
that's-
agree to this, are they?
That's Scottish revenue, and I don't see why a home fan should pay more than an away fan. I mean, I'm about to get over £50 taken out my account to attend the Old Firm Scottish Cup game a week on Sunday. So the idea that the Celtic fans might be getting in for 25 quid. How do you think that might go down? But
tricky.
as someone as well, I don't get as many away games as I'd like to these days because family commitments. But I just forked out £37 a few weeks ago for the pleasure of going to Fir Park. And I know Motherwell fans will be charged similar to go to Ibrox. It definitely is far too much. But unless clubs find another revenue stream,
They're not making the
One thing,
broadcast.
one thing similar. That's what I was going to say. We Hearts as a club need that ticket money. That's one of our biggest bits of income, as it is for most clubs,
Yeah.
because our TV deal
Their TV
negotiated by the experts who run Scottish football, who must be related to the experts who run the legal system. Can't get a TV deal for loving their money. That's worth the money, So that would help if we got a decent TV deal. I think we could see ticket prices come down. But obviously, I'll be watching the Hearts win the league, regardless of what I pay.
And on that bombshell, I just want to say thanks very much to Mark and Dougie for joining me. Thanks also to Daryl Devine from the Records video team who produced this episode. You can listen to it of an All Planet Holyrood episodes on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Watch it on the Records YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. It's not just all pictures of us, by the way, or TikTok for the latest news and the best bits of the podcast. So that's all from me. Paul will be back next week, and it's goodbye.
We will never turn our back on a single Scot.
We've got to wrestle with those challenges.
This is the same nonsense we have heard time and time again.
This is our country. Let's fix it together.